I think I speak for all of us when I say pretty much everyone loves Spider-Man. The guy is definitely one of the greatest superheroes of all time, and for good reason. Seeing him swing through New York and do incredible things on the big screen and in the comics is a fantastic thing, but I think we can all agree that video games being a completely different medium and allowing us to become Spider-Man makes the experience much more enjoyable. Just like the comics, Spider-Man has had a long video game history dating all the way back to the Atari, but I want to stick to more recent titles like Spider-Man 2, not that one, the new one. This game has been a topic of a lot of controversy regarding the game's overall direction and development process, things like cut content, bad story direction, and overall poor mission design. The game has faced a lot of criticism for its Peter redesign and a host of other issues that plagued the game's overall success. But as for me, I've beaten the game 3 times now, and outside of one minor gripe, I really don't have much to complain about. So with that out of the way, I wanted to talk about why Spider-Man 2 is an absolute masterpiece. So strap in, this is gonna be a long one. Alright, first up, the story. If you've played the other 2 previous Spider-Man games, then you already know these guys can deliver a solid narrative. Spider-Man 2018 gave us an emotionally mature Peter Parker struggling with the burden of responsibility, and Miles Morales added a fresh perspective and built upon the first game, refining the overall experience. It also gave us this gem as well,
full of the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
So naturally, Spider-Man 2 had a lot riding on it, especially with 2 playable characters and the introduction of Venom. It added to the anticipation of how the game would turn out. So starting off, the game kicks off strong with a Sandman boss fight that puts both Peter and Miles in the spotlight immediately. It's a super high octane and cinematic opening that sets the tone for what kind of ride we're in for. New York is under attack and these two are already operating like a seasoned duo, swinging through collapsing skyscrapers and webbing debris alongside both Peter Parker and Miles Morales reacquaints players with their dynamic. This mission also plants seeds of tension, foreshadowing Peter's financial instability and Miles' lingering grief over his father's death. The opening sequence is done beautifully, showcasing the PS5's raw power and giving us a super detailed and destroyed New York with no holds barred, and this is one of my favorite game openings to date. But going back to the game, Peter's broke, the guy can barely keep a job, he's behind on his mortgage, and now Aunt May's house is up for sale. Meanwhile, Miles is dealing with college apps, the looming anniversary of his dad's death, and trying to prove himself as more than just the other Spider-Man. And while that sounds like a lot, Insomniac does a pretty good job juggling these personal struggles. And then Harry shows up. And it's here where the game has my biggest gripe. It's the Peter, MJ, and Harry flashback mission. And to me, it is way too long and has this looming, dragging feeling. Though it's used to get us ready for stealth missions later in the game, the whole mission is just a snooze fest with the most drawn out sequences, and in my opinion could be cut way down, as the story purpose for it is to introduce Harry as a full-fledged character in the game and reconnect Peter to his old childhood buddy. While I have no issue with the lore reasons, I still can't help but groan every time I have to do this, and I've done it more than once, so it definitely gets old fast. But getting back on track, Peter's childhood best friend is back, miraculously healed from his long illness. If you remember from the first game in Miles Morales, Harry had been in stasis until he got better, and then his awakening in Miles Morales. He's finally in the game for real now. But after Miles meets up with the Prowler and gives Miles his tech to help out, we get the first look at the first villain, Kraven. He's coming to New York, but Miles meets with Peter to oversee the transportation of the previous villain, Scorpion and Martin Lee, or Mr. Negative. But as they depart, the ship goes under attack by a mysterious group of mercenaries, so Peter and Miles help take out the mercenaries and stop them from recapturing the contained villains. This doesn't go as planned, and the ship is completely destroyed, along with an entire pier, and the hunters use large harpoons to tear the ship apart and capture Scorpion and Lee. And during this, Miles is battling straight demons as he gets infected with Scorpion's venom while trying to rescue him from the sinking ship. He's met with all of his fears and regrets while low-key drowning. But overall, Miles and Peters are outnumbered and outmatched, as saving the innocents is their main priority, and the hunters escape with Scorpion and Lee, while Miles does his best not to crash out and go after Lee. He gets it together and helps Peter. And with that, we have our objective for the first arc. Peter then meets up with Harry at the Emily May Foundation, which is a tribute nonprofit focused on healing the world, as Harry puts it. And this part of the game is definitely a better Peter mission as we get a look into what Harry promised Peter, and it's actually pretty cool, and it makes you wish we had something like the Emily May Foundation in real life with all the best tech aimed at eliminating pain in the world. But as Peter walks in the building, he's met with Norman Osborn welcoming him to the facility and tries to get Peter to work. But to his surprise, Harry tells him that he hasn't accepted the offer yet, and let me tell you, the look Norman gives Peter is priceless, but Harry shows Peter around the facility, and all the things they talked about in school finally come to life. I think this mission perfectly shows us Harry's motivation and dedication to his cause, whether it be with or without Peter. We'd all just prefer Peter to be involved. But this is where we see Peter start to accept Harry being back and accept Harry's offer to join the Foundation. After his visit at the EMF, we get a lead from Miles and Genki regarding some bad guys at the bridge, and go check it out to find a cloaking force field hiding a base camp in plain sight. After beating all the mercenaries, we follow one of the drones to another base camp, and this time we use one of the drones to locate the main hideout, or one of them. Once we get to the hideout, MJ points out that this unknown shell company has been buying up all kinds of abandoned property all over the city, so we can only imagine if this is the main hideout. But nonetheless, we proceed into the hideout for another stealth mission. Now at this point, after 3 playthroughs, I did not care for the stealth at all, and went in like the tank I know Spider-Man can be and blitzed everybody. But we get all the information we can from the hideout and discover Kraven has been hunting the villains, and even killed the Scorpion and more. So with this revelation, we get out and try to warn Miles to warn Black Cat, as she's next on the list. Meanwhile, Miles is still struggling with his essay, and if it wasn't clear this time, they make it apparent that Miles is itching for Spider-Man work, even during his mom's date, which he promised to be there for. But that's a running theme for Spider-Man, so oh well. But Miles goes on to look for Felicia to warn her of the hunters coming to capture her, only to find out that she stole an artifact that allows the user to teleport anywhere with just a thought, which she plans to use to get out of not just New York, but out of the country. But after helping Black Cat, we go to the carnival to check out Mysterio's new attraction, which is just a rhythm sim that goes wrong. But after doing whatever this is, we run into Peter, who's at the carnival with Harry and MJ, and this interaction is so awkward because we see Peter's 2 lives kind of collide for a second, and you can see just how Peter and Miles get uncomfortable, and MJ is kind of just standing there like. But Miles and Genki leave, and we take over as Peter to enjoy the rides and festivities, which of course gets cut short as more hunters come to capture the tombstone. So we help out, but we're interrupted by the Ferris wheel and roller coaster falling and being derailed, which leads to Tombstone's capture. But also, and in spectacular fashion, Harry unlocks his abilities to help Peter save the civilians, and thus Harry's short hero arc begins. So Peter and Harry go back to the EMF facility to test Harry's new abilities, and as expected, they don't really do any testing. They kind of just break a bunch of stuff in their office and pass out. But fast forward, Harry is now more acclimated to using his symbiote at this point, and even makes his suit now, and goes along with Peter as backup to rescue Tombstone. Meanwhile, Miles helps get a drum set back. But the game finally puts us in the shoes of MJ for a sneak mission with nothing but our wits and our trusty taser. Now these missions have for the most part garnered a lot of backlash, as some people find them boring and just plain bad and not needed, and to be honest, I'm not gonna argue that. MJ then discovers more intel about the hunters and finds Dr. Connors locked up in a cage, and it looks like they're gonna try and bring the lizard back, so MJ does what she can to help until Peter arrives. Once MJ frees Dr. Connors, Peter and Harry finally show up, and we learn that it's too late for Dr. Connors as he's already been injected with the lizard serum, and it's only a matter of time before he goes berserk. But after we fight off a good number of hunters, Kraven steps on the scene, and he's got a thick set of plot armor as he manages to grab hold of Peter and stab him with a regular old knife. But Peter is basically on the verge of death after his interaction with Kraven, and it's here in the story that things start to get sticky, because Harry's treatment literally jumps off him and bonds with Peter as an attempt to save his life, which it does. But Peter, with his new symbiote suit, beats the rest of the hunters as Kraven gets away to look for the lizard. Now to be completely honest, this sequence is absolutely brain dead, because the whole time after they revive Peter, they're acting very nonchalant about the whole incident, but once they make it back to the office, you can see the disappointment on his face as he and the rest of the group knows that without the symbiote, he's pretty much cooked. Peter tries to give it back to Harry in the most lazy, well, I tried, way ever. So Harry diverts the conversation back to the objective at hand, which is to find Dr. Connors. At first it seems like Peter is taking the new suit well, and honestly it may just be compartmentalization, but the nonsense of urgency for your dying friend seems a little off-putting. But this isn't the first time Peter chose over Harry.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
But as they look for the lizard, they find out that Kraven is hosting a party. Turns out Kraven is sick and is doing all of this as his last hunt, and is looking for prey to give him a worthy death instead of being taken out by his sickness. And you guessed it, we are his last hunt. Now here's where we start to see the cracks in Peter's character show as he becomes more and more unstable from the symbiote suit. His street clothes are now all black and his behavior has become way more cavalier. We see his carelessness in full display when he quite literally goes inside the particle accelerator, and if you've seen that Kyle Hill video, you know that's the last thing bro should do. But he feels invincible, basically showing the chute off to Harry, who warns him. Also saying this to Harry before he goes in is wild.
Stay positive.
But while they're fixing the accelerator, more hunters ambush them, and we get this magnificent line.
Before we get down to business, there's something I have to tell you. I'm fresh out of honey.
But in the process of getting the antidote, the EMF facility is completely destroyed, to which Norman shows up and is relieved to see Harry okay, but Harry is definitely not okay. He pretty much had to stand there defenseless and powerless while him and his best friend's dream crumbled around them. But meanwhile this is happening, Miles is over here still trying to write his essay and risk this girl he's had a thing for a while now. But still, it's weird how Peter is over here literally dying and coming back to life and infiltrating hideouts and getting a cure for Dr. Connors, while Miles is running around avoiding an essay, doing busy work. And for the most part, a lot of Miles' missions in this game feel like filler. Like the art museum mission, it's just retrieving a drum set and stressing over this girl. But funny enough, even though Miles hasn't been at the forefront of this particular objective, he manages to find his way to the lizard, as he's the first to make contact with him. That water sequence is actually kinda badass, as you ski across the river holding on to the lizard. This leads to the lizard fight with Peter, but not before Peter rips Miles a new one for honestly doing his best, seeing as though he is Spider-Man, but experience plays a big role in how he goes about doing things. But the lizard fight is a two-phase fight that spans across a big area, but overall isn't too crazy, and we end up giving Dr. Connors the antidote and get him back to normal. Peter then goes back home for some sleep, and we see through MJ's demeanor that she's very wary of Peter in the black suit and questions why he didn't get it removed when Dr. Connors helped, but he just brushes her off and falls asleep. Unbeknownst to Peter, more hunters show up at his house ready to ambush him and MJ is the only one that sees this and makes her way outside, taking out hunters. She even tries to text Miles for help even though Peter is quite literally just inside the house. Now if this is because she didn't want to wake him or she thought he wouldn't wake up is weird, and it makes more sense that she doesn't even want to engage with Black Suit Peter, as he's gotten a lot more aggressive, as shown when he saves MJ from a hunter, which turns out isn't even Peter. It's the suit itself acting on his behalf and rampaging through the neighborhood. And it's at this point that Peter, or rather Venom, has been subtly introduced as the last villain, and I really admire how they integrated Venom into this. And in my opinion, this arc of the game is done the best in regard to what the game had been building up until this point. As we chase Peter, or the suit, we see all the destruction he leaves in his wake, and we're more scared of Peter than the hunters chasing both of us, and even go as far as to help them get out of his way, with Miles trapping Peter in a tunnel for Miles to deal with the symbiote and get Peter back. And here we also get to actually do real Spider-Man work as Miles, but MJ goes in the tunnel looking for Peter in hopes of trying to get him back, and the suit has got him so bad he can no longer control the suit and even tries to attack MJ. As a last resort, he tells her to run before the suit takes back over and rampages again. And while this is happening, Miles is taking care of the hunters above, but is overwhelmed and captured by Kraven to lure Peter to him. Fast forward to the morning, and Peter wakes up on a bench, well rested and unaware of what happened the night before. This cutscene is very eerie, as Peter seems so unfazed by the missed calls and cries for help on his phone, and is relishing in the fact that he got some really good sleep, further showing us just how far Peter has devolved from his former self. Peter realizes that MJ published her paper and is not happy about what she wrote, calling him out for the rampages and damage she caused, but he acted like she didn't give him a chance to read it, but we know he passed out before he could. Harry also left him a message, so he goes to see how he's doing, and Harry does not look well at all, trying his best to stay afloat with the medication even though his condition is only getting worse without the suit. And Harry doesn't waste any time getting to the point, saying to Peter that he needs that suit back. And the look he gives Peter as he walks in the room tells us exactly how Harry is feeling towards Peter at this point, seeing as though Peter hasn't really tried to give the suit back or even care to at this point. But as soon as Harry asks him to give it back, we see Peter immediately take offense and looks at Harry like he's in the wrong for even asking that. MJ walks in just as they're having this conversation and asks Peter what he remembers about the night before, and he responds saying that he only remembers being really tired. MJ tries to tell Peter that the suit is changing him into something he's not, and Peter starts getting mad at both of them, lashing out at Harry and telling telling him to pop some more pills and tell him how he really feels. And the worst part about this is that he's showing zero remorse for Harry and throws the fact that the suit saved him back up in their face, not considering that he's quite literally a superhero and does have a healing factor, something Harry definitely does not have. But while Peter starts to get riled up, MJ grabs her stun gun, clearly showing she's terrified of Peter at this point. Peter tells her he saw her story, implying she didn't write the truth, and selfishly tells her and Harry that he's the hero, not her, and storms out of the room. I absolutely love this part of the cutscene because it does a masterful job at showing just what Peter has become at the expense of his loved ones, and I just love the subtlety of this scene. While Peter is waiting for the elevator, he hears Norman yelling down the hall, so he goes to investigate. We then see Norman is running himself ragged, trying to figure out how to cure his son. Norman notices Peter, and it's clear that he's at his wit's end and doesn't know what else to do, and tries to get comfort from Peter, and tells him how proud he is of Peter, and tells him he's like a son to him, and even thanks him for being with Harry through everything. And in the background we see Harry overhearing this conversation, and he looks absolutely defeated, and leaves as his father tells the person he once called friend be embraced by his father, not knowing Peter is wearing his son's life-saving treatment right now. This scene is really painful to watch as Peter shows his father not much empathy. I can only imagine Peter has to be feeling conflicted inside, knowing what he knows, but cuts the interaction short to leave. And I gotta say, it's scenes like these that really show just how good the storytelling is, and I really admire how they conveyed Peter's decay while giving us a better look into how the symbiote affects the user, especially Peter, seeing as Harry with the symbiote is driven by helping people no matter what, and delivering some really heartfelt performances by all parties. Seeing Harry's rage towards his childhood friend who betrayed him to play hero while he's stuck at home dying is heartbreaking to say the least. Peter leaves to see Miles' mom, and you gotta give it to her because she doesn't even know what's been happening to Peter or what the suit has done to him. But she still rips into Peter about how Miles has pretty much given up everything to help Peter and how Miles has been looking for Lee. She tells Peter to help him. And I love to see someone finally stand up to him and tell him the reality of what the situation is. Peter knows Miles has been trying his best to be a better Spider-Man while trying to live his life and move on from the events of his game, so he can't do anything but listen to her and go look for Miles and help him finally. Miles finally wakes up in a cage, and the place where he's locked up in is armed with a bunch of lasers, mostly designed for him to prevent him from getting out. But you know he does, and he ends up in a room filled with hunters, and they don't even attack him. It's almost like they've been waiting for him and make a path for him to a door that leads to an arena where Lee is and waiting for him. And it's clear that Kraven has pitted them against each other, and for Miles he doesn't even realize this and just gets to fighting. This is exactly what Miles had been waiting for, a chance to finally finish Lee and get his revenge. The whole fight is Miles trying to make Lee feel the pain he's felt all this time. During the third phase of the fight, Lee gets in Miles' head and tries to use his loved ones against him, even goes as far to use the man he killed to get him to give up. Miles of course doesn't fall for any of this and overpowers Lee. Lee, defeated, tells Miles to go ahead and do it, implying he should get his revenge. Miles acts like he's going to give the final blow when he brings Lee in close and tells him to find Peter when he's out, and launches him out the building. Why he didn't escape through the window with Lee is beyond me, but we switch over to Peter, who finds Lee on a rooftop. Lee tells Peter he's not looking for a fight and tells Peter where Miles is. Peter gives off a very annoyed vibe and even says a little bit of help, and suddenly everyone is all about Miles, seemingly more annoyed he has to help Miles rather than concerned. Peter goes to find Miles and ends up in an arena similar to what Miles was in, but this time Peter finally confronts Kraven. He gets trapped in a cage and Kraven goads Peter on to give in into the rage and break free. During this fight, it's clear that because we were his last hunt, he'd studied the properties of the symbiote and knows that loud noises is a weakness of ours, and we have to adapt to that. Overall, a pretty good fight with two phases that gets cut short right before we're about to kill Kraven, but Miles, who steps in, stops Peter from killing Kraven. Peter then turns his rage towards Miles, and we get another boss fight. After Miles subdues Peter, he helps get the symbiote off of him and contain it. They regroup on a rooftop, and it's clear that Peter is extremely ashamed of what he'd become while under the suit's influence, and all he can do is apologize. Once they get their bearing, Peter goes to look for Dr. Connors to get rid of the symbiote and check on Harry. After speaking with everyone that matters and apologizing for our behavior, Peter shows up at Oscorp to see Harry, and boy, is Harry not too pleased to see us. Peter tries to tell Harry that the suit is too dangerous and doesn't want to see him lose himself like Peter did, but Harry is not having it and lashes out at Peter, telling him that he saved his life, so why won't he save his, asserting the idea that Peter wants his friend to die. The symbiote reacts to Harry and breaks free from containment, and Harry immediately goes to bond with the symbiote again. But this time, we don't get the previous Harry in the cool suit, nah. this time we get pure Venom. It completely consumes Harry, turning him into a more comic reminiscent version of Venom we all know, not that skinny Venom from the movie. But this is where the game hits its emotional peak. As we saw earlier in the game, the symbiote leaves Peter and bonds with Harry, but instead of Venom being a mindless monster, he's Harry's will, a desperate, misguided attempt to make the world better, to save Peter, to save everyone. It's tragic. Venom is terrifying and powerful, but it's also heartbreaking because it's Harry. The way the game handles the symbiote arc is one of the best parts of the entire narrative. Peter gets bonded with it around the midway point of the game, and it immediately starts to change him, not just gameplay wise where you get all those new brutal tentacle-based attacks, but emotionally. He becomes angrier, more violent, more isolated. He lashes out at MJ, at Miles, at literally anyone who tries to get close. And honestly, given how the last mainstream version of Venom we got was in Spider-Man 3 and it being Eddie Brock instead of Harry, I think this arc and version of Venom is done much better. The fact that it's our friend instead of some guy that works at the same place as us. Also, the way the game handled Peter getting the suit over the movie is much more realistic in terms of how it affected his character. In the movie, it's almost instant that Peter starts getting evil, whereas in the game, it's more of a slow burn, with Peter becoming more cocky, then more and more aggressive and lashing out at everyone while being extremely selfish and annoyed. This isn't just surface level angry Peter, it digs into who Peter is and why he needs to stay grounded. His humanity is his superpower. When he starts to lose that, he starts losing himself. The game doesn't just throw black goo on him and call it a day. It gives us a full-on character breakdown. If there's a way to write Venom, this is for sure it. But we finally made it to the climax and ending of the game, and if you've made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you sticking with us, honestly. This is for sure my longest video ever, so I want to say thank you to all of those that are still with us. But back to the game. The game finally lets us play as Venom, and it's just as fun as you'd expect, playing as a Hulk-esque character. Literally nothing phases us, and we just tank through all of Oscorp security like nothing, absolutely tearing through the building with ease. But once we make it outside, we get our last interaction with Kraven, and finally give him the worthy death he's been seeking. But at the same time, Harry realizes what he's done, and he has to see his mother to remember what it was all about, to heal the world. So with that, Venom enacts his will and covers the whole city in Venom, while lifting his mother's gravesite high above the city as a marker. But we cut to Venom sacrificing villains to a symbiote portal, converting them into mindless symbiote minions. Turns out Genki and Miles' mother are stuck in there, so they go in to save them both. Once they free them both from a train car, Miles uses this opportunity to apologize and reconnect with Genki and his mother. With that out of the way, Peter decides it's time to check on MJ and see how she's doing in the midst of all of this. And while they're talking, it's clear she's unaware of what happened with Harry, but is cut short by the doorbell. It's Harry. As soon as she opens the door, Harry scowls at her, and all Peter can see is her getting swarmed by black tentacles. Then the call drops, so naturally we rush over to see what's going on. Once we get there, we see MJ and Harry sitting at the dinner table, and MJ looks at us completely terrified. Harry pretends to look surprised that Peter showed up, saying that he looks tense. Peter tries to tell Harry that they need to talk, and Harry derails the conversation to talk about making the world a better place and saying that he can help now that he has the power to do so. But things start to get heated when Peter tells him that they need to get that thing off of him, to which he no longer refers to himself as just Harry, but now it's we, and he calls himself Venom. Venom grabs MJ and pushes Peter away to convert MJ into a Venom as well. We then get the first look at Scream, a version of Venom, and while MJ isn't one of the original hosts of Scream, it isn't out of place or abrasive to the story, seeing in this universe, it's the people closest to Peter that get the symbiote. But moving on, I'm gonna fast forward a bit because this video is already long enough, so we cut to by far the best action sequence and final fight of the game. The Venom fight is definitely one of the best boss fights in the whole game. It ends very climactically with Harry dead from the stress it put on his body and the original sickness. Miles revives him and he's sent to the hospital. Norman shows up and without context blames Peter for what happened to his son. We cut to Harry's room and Norman is wearing a green jacket, wink wink, and in a fit of rage and sadness he starts bashing in the window. He then gets on the phone to ask if the G serum is ready, and we cut to black. And with that, we've made it through the story of the game. And man, every time I play this game I can't help but admire all the little things that went into making a truly captivating Spider-Man story that doesn't lose the essence of Spider-Man. It's emotional, it's cinematic, and it sticks the landing in all the ways that matter. But in my opinion, Insomniac completely nailed this one. Unfortunately, I can't talk about this game without going over the various controversies the game picked up after its launch. Spider-Man 2 didn't just stir up social media outrage, it was also caught in a web of expectations Insomniac helped spin. Much of the backlash stemmed from not what the game is, but from what people thought it was gonna be. Insomniac promised a larger, more immersive world, including playable segments in Brooklyn and Queens. While technically true, those areas ended up feeling more like visual extensions than meaningful expansions. Players expected neighborhoods brimming with activity and side missions, but instead, many found long stretches of empty space, repetitive crimes, and recycled collectibles. The map was bigger, sure, but it wasn't necessarily better. Then there's the matter of Peter's new face. This wasn't just some small cosmetic tweak, it was a full-on recast of Peter's model to more closely resemble actor Ben Jordan, a decision that drew heavy criticism. Fans of the 2018 game had grown attached to the original design, and suddenly waking up to a new Peter who looked like he stepped out of a TikTok rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. The devs said it was for better facial capture performance. Let's not pretend the MCU resemblance didn't factor into that decision. That said, the more concerning controversy didn't come from in-game decisions, it came from a massive Insomniac leak in 2023. Hackers exposed internal files revealing extensive plans for future Marvel titles, including a Venom spin-off and even a potential third mainline Spider-Man game. While these leaks were external and not a fault of the developers themselves, they still soured the post-launch conversation. People started questioning what had been cut from Spider-Man 2 to make room for DLC, and whether the game we got was just a setup for future cash grabs. The MJ missions made their return too, and while the writing around her improved, the gameplay not so much. Playing as MJ with a stun gun in a game where you can web swing across skyscrapers still feels like handing a Ferrari key to a toddler and slowing the game completely down. It's not as painful as in the first game, but it still kills the momentum. But to be fair, some of the criticism was warranted. The side activities were clearly not as developed as the main story. The Flame Cult side plot with Cletus Cassidy, yeah, the Carnage stuff, fizzled out with barely any resolution, and a lot of players felt there were too few major boss fights given the scale of the game's setup. And while the final act delivered, many felt like the build-up came in waves instead of a steady climb. So I mean, in my opinion, Spider-Man 2 wasn't buried by its own story or gameplay, but it definitely carried the weight of its own marketing. The game isn't perfect, but what it does do right, it does really right. This game hands down has the best open world traversal in modern gaming. Swinging through New York City feels absolutely incredible, and with the addition of the web wings and wind tunnels, you're now gliding, zipping, and swinging with more flow and speed than ever before. It honestly never gets old. Even after the main story, I caught myself just swinging around just to feel the momentum, pull off insane tricks. This game has that GTA car ride feel while traversing through New York, but with a little kick to it that makes it so addicting. Also, the combat got beefed up a lot too. Peter with his symbiote powers is an absolute menace. Every punch feels like it's hitting with the weight of a truck. Miles' upgraded Venom powers are nice and stylish. The combo variety, skill trees, and new gadgets make both characters feel different and give you real reasons to switch between them beyond just story. And the boss fights, they finally got those right. Spider-Man had good ones, but Spider-Man 2 had great ones. Venom, Lizard, Kraven, and even the side villain fights feel more thought out and cinematic. Graphically, this is peak PS5. The lighting, facial animations, reflection, texture detail, all top tier. It's one of the best looking open world games on console right now, and it runs like butter. This game sets up a lot for the future. Symbiote teases, the G-Serum tease, potential spin-offs with characters like Cindy Moon or even Carnage. Insomniac clearly has plans, but let me know what you thought of the game. Did it hit for you? Was it overhyped? Would you have preferred it to be just a Peter-centric story? Drop a comment and let me know what you guys thought of the game. Don't forget to hit that like button, and if you stayed through the whole video, I really appreciate you, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.